massive. It is said that this was a once in a millennium type of earthquake, and the tsunami waves easily went over the 10-meter high walls. One survivor says that it was a really severe tsunami. It wasn't just the tsunami, but also the earthquake itself was horrible. She said that thinking about the 1933 tsunami, she thought that she would be okay. However, the water poured over the wall, and that was why she was drenched. The fire department people helped her to get here, she says. Another survivor says that there used to be a home there where you see a car. He points to where his house used to stand. Asked how the waves came and struck, he says that he heard on TV that the tsunami waves were 4-meter high. However, he says that these seawalls are 10-meter high, but the waves were higher than the walls. So he supposes that the tsunami could have been 14 meters high. And this man says that it was far greater than the 1933 tsunami. It was more than he could imagine. The force of nature was demonstrated by this tsunami. And the energy was more than what people expected, and the survivors were left with nothing. The tsunamis also devastated the southern part of Fukushima Prefecture, which has a coastline that is different from Aria's coastline. This is the Soma area in Fukushima Prefecture. A plain follows the coastline toward the inland area, and it was said that the tsunami wave's height would not be as high as a tsunami that may hit Aria's coastline. However, according to record, a 7-meter, 30-centimeter high major tsunami could have hit this area. The tsunami wave could have been even higher. This is an elderly home, and it has been swallowed by the tsunami, and you see upturned cars. This woman says that black water came gushing forward, and her car was about to be swallowed by the wave. She said that she didn't have time to see how high the waves were, and this woman says that a gray wave came toward her like a wall. It looked like the big surf waves that you see in cartoons. For the people who were trying to evacuate to high ground, it was not just the height of the waves, but the speed of the traveling wave was tremendous and surprised the people. According to previous disaster prevention plans in Fukushima, the assumption was that the first wave would hit 1 hour after the earthquake. However, the actual tsunami wave came just 9 minutes after the earthquake. The survivor says that it was horrible. She can't say how high the waves were. She cannot find words to describe the tsunami waves. She says that she was able to see the waves swallowing up everything in its pathway. She says that her knees were shaking. The tsunami bulldozed down many buildings, just leaving the foundations behind. The major tsunami caused great damage over a 500-kilometer stretch along the Pacific coast in the Tohoku region. The speed of the wave and also the vast disaster area also were beyond people's expectations. What created such major tsunami waves? The experts say that there were many things that they did not expect and assume when they planned beforehand. At the University of Tokyo Earthquake Research Institute, Professor Takashi Furumura researches tsunami waves and also earthquakes using seismic wave and other data. This is the Yokohama Stadium during the earthquake. Quakes were felt 300 kilometers away from the focus in the Tokyo metropolitan area. These are seismic waves observed at the Tokyo University. You can see the waves that continue for a very long time, and the amplitude is very large. This strong quake that continued for a long time shows the characteristics of the big earthquake. The 1995 Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake. In intensity 7 on the Japanese scale of 0 to 7, a quake was registered, and it continued for over 15 seconds. Comparing the seismic waves of the two earthquakes tells us that the recent earthquake continued 20 times longer than the Great Hanshin Awaji earthquake. Why did such a horrible quake continue for over a long period? Off the Tohoku coast lies the Pacific Plate, and it subducts under the Japanese archipelago. And when this happens, the plate on the land side is pulled by the Pacific Plate, creating a strain. In this earthquake, the strain was so large that it was no longer able to hold the strain, and the plate jumped up. And the plate's movement spread from the focus at a speed of 3 kilometers per second. And the impact could have spread over an area stretching 200 kilometers by 500 kilometers, and that is why we have this 5-minute-long quake. Professor Furumura says that this was the biggest earthquake probably ever recorded in the history of Japan. The focus was in the area off the Miyagi coast. It is said that an earthquake would hit in a cycle of 30 to 40 years. The last major earthquake occurred 33 years ago in 1978. It was a magnitude 7.4 earthquake, which caused reinforced concrete buildings to collapse and oil tanks to rupture. 28 people died in this earthquake. When will the next big earthquake hit? From about 10 years ago, the government has asked experts to try to predict the next big quake. According to a report by the experts, they said that there is a 99% probability of a large-scale earthquake hitting in the next 30 years. The yellow part shows where the government expected where the focus would be. That would be the area the government expected the plate to jump up. However, in this earthquake, the plate jumped up over a very large area that stretches from about around the Iwate Prefecture area to Miyagi Prefecture. The seabed may have heaved over several meters, over a 500 kilometers stretch from north to south. And that lifted up the water, and that water advanced toward the land as a tsunami. Professor Furumura says that from Iwate to the north and Fukushima to the south, maybe it would have stretched over to Ibaraki. And the magnitude, which was expected to be about 7.5, in the end registered a magnitude 9.0. And the energy of the quake was 80 to 90 times larger than was initially expected. Great tsunamis hit the Pacific coast of Japan right after the earthquake. And in Taro district of Iwate Prefecture, the water jumped over the 10-meter tall protective wall. And the Soma district of Fukushima Prefecture saw the waters rushing toward them faster than expected. Many of the tidal gauges were damaged because of the massive tsunamis, and therefore not much data has been gathered. Professor Furumura is trying to analyze what happened to the fault in order to recreate what happened with the tsunami. He is using simulation to see what happened. With the plate jumping up over a 500-kilometer span, water was displaced and a huge wall of water came toward the land. And as a result, along the Sanriku coast, in the inlets and the coves, the tsunami amplified, creating big waves. In the Soma area in Fukushima Prefecture, tsunamis approached around the same time, and it was contained within the bay area and continued to hit again and again within the bay. Professor Furumura says that the sea surface must have heaved several meters high, and the body of water right above the focus must have traveled as a tsunami, and it was amplified as it hit the coastline and advanced toward the inland area. Science nowadays would not have been able to tell us if such a tsunami would have hit with this earthquake.
We're joined in the studio by Associate Professor Yoshinobu Tsuji of the Earthquake Research Institute of the University of Tokyo, who has studied tsunamis for many years. As we just saw in the video, we saw the example of Miyako and Soma. The residents said that the tsunami was like a very large wall because an enormous amount of water attacked them in one big rush. And could you explain to us the mechanism of this major tsunami? As Professor Furumura was simulating earlier, there's that, and there's something else I want to show you. This is data from the seabed seismometer which Tokyo University has installed off the shores of Kamaishi. And this blue line represents the areas far from the land, meaning closer to the epicenter. The earthquake occurred at 2:46 p.m. and the seabed surged up, and the tsunami approaches the coast, and it's recorded by the first tsunami gauge.